The massive screens in the Galactic Council's monitoring chamber flickered with unusual activity. Dr. Reed stood before them, his gray eyes fixed on the strange readings that poured in from the deep space sensors. After 30 years of watching the stars, he had never seen anything quite like this. "Sir, you need to see this," called out one of the younger technicians, his fingers dancing across the holographic controls. "The gravitational sensors are going crazy." Dr. Reed walked over, his steps measured and careful in the low gravity of the council station. The readings indeed made no sense. Something was surfing. Yes, literally surfing, across the waves of space-time. Not one object, but hundreds of them, moving in perfect harmony. "Contact the council immediately," he ordered, his voice steady despite the excitement building in his chest. "Tell them we have a code blue situation." Within minutes, the chamber filled with the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Creatures of all shapes and sizes gathered around the central display. Some floated in containment fields filled with exotic gases, while others walked on multiple legs or slithered across the floor. All of them, however, shared the same expression of concern. At least those who had faces. "Report, Dr. Reed," commanded the head counselor, his crystalline form catching the light from the screens. "We've detected a new species achieving faster than light travel," Reed began, pulling up the sensor data. "But they're not using any technology we've seen before. No antimatter drives, no quantum tunneling, no hyperspace gates." He paused, letting the data speak for itself. The new species had somehow found a way to ride the natural waves in space-time, like surfers on an ocean. It was elegant, efficient, and completely impossible, according to every known law of physics. "How many ships?" asked a counselor who existed primarily as a cloud of intelligent gas. "If we can call them ships," Reed responded, adjusting the display. "Approximately 300. But they're not constructed of any material we recognize. They appear to be living crystal formations that bend light around them. Our sensors have trouble even tracking them." The chamber erupted in worried whispers. The head counselor raised a crystalline appendage for silence. "What is their heading?" "That's the most interesting part," Reed said, expanding the star map. "They're not moving in a straight line or even along normal trade routes. They're following a pattern that seems random at first glance, but there's something else going on. They're mapping gravitational fields we didn't even know existed." The display showed the crystal ships dancing through space, weaving between stars like threads in a cosmic tapestry. They moved with a grace that seemed impossible for their size, each one perfectly synchronized with the others. "Have they noticed us?" another counselor asked. As if in answer to the question, every screen in the chamber suddenly displayed the same message, written in the mathematical language used for galactic communication. "We see you. We come to BVATG." The message was simple, but it sent chills through every being in the room. These newcomers hadn't just noticed the council's observation. They had effortlessly breached the most sophisticated security systems in known space just to say hello. "They call themselves the Watchers," Reed explained, analyzing the signal. "And from what I can tell, they're not here to conquer or trade. They're here to evaluate us." "Evaluate?" The head counselor's voice carried a note of concern. "For what purpose?" Before Reed could answer, another message appeared. "Your species are hello, predictable, but there is one that is not. We call them for them." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Every advanced civilization followed certain patterns of development, certain logical progressions that could be predicted and understood. Every civilization except one. "They're looking for humans," Reed said quietly, understanding dawning in his eyes. "We're the only species that doesn't follow their expected patterns." The head counselor's crystalline form dimmed slightly. "Then we must warn Earth immediately. The most advanced species we've ever encountered is coming to meet the most unpredictable one. The galaxy may never be the same." As if to punctuate his words, the crystal ships changed course as one, all 300 of them turning toward the spiral arm of space that held a small blue planet called Earth. Commander Wilson stood at the window of Earth Defense Station Alpha, watching the stars. His coffee had gone cold hours ago, but he couldn't bring himself to look away from the view. Somewhere out there, the mysterious Watchers were approaching, and humanity was about to face its biggest test. "Sir," called Lieutenant Baker from her monitoring station, "we're picking up unusual light patterns at the edge of our solar system." Wilson moved quickly to the main display. The massive screen showed what looked like ripples in space itself, as if someone had thrown stones into a cosmic pond. Then, one by one, the crystal ships appeared. They didn't burst through hyperspace or tear holes in reality like other alien ships Wilson had seen. Instead, they simply emerged, like swimmers breaking the surface of a pool. "My God," Wilson whispered. The crystal ships were beautiful. Each one was the size of a small city, with surfaces that seemed to flow like liquid glass. Colors danced across their hulls, not from lights or paint, but from the way they bent the very light of the stars around them. "Sir, they're broadcasting on all frequencies," Baker reported, her fingers moving across her console. "The message is different." Instead of words or pictures, the main screen filled with pure mathematical equations. Wilson wasn't a scientist, but even he could tell these weren't ordinary calculations. They were elegant, simple, yet contained information that would take Earth's best computers years to process. "Get me Dr. Reed from the Galactic Council," Wilson ordered. Within moments, the familiar face of the scientist appeared on a side screen. "Commander," Reed said, looking tired but excited, "I assume you're seeing what we're seeing. If you mean space crystals doing impossible things with gravity, then yes," Wilson replied. "What are they trying to tell us?" "It's fascinating," Reed explained, his eyes bright. "They're not just sending us equations, they're teaching us how they see the universe. According to these formulas, gravity isn't just a force, it's more like a language." As they watched, one of the crystal ships broke formation and moved closer to Earth. It stopped just beyond the moon's orbit, its surface shimmering with waves of blue and purple light. Then, something extraordinary happened. A portion of the crystal ship became completely transparent, revealing what was inside. The beings they called Watchers were unlike anything humanity had imagined. They weren't solid creatures at all, but rather patterns of light and energy that moved with purpose and intelligence. "We greet you, humans," a voice echoed through every speaker and device on Earth capable of producing sound. "We are the observers of order, though you call us Watchers. We have come to understand." Wilson straightened his uniform. "This is Commander Wilson of Earth Defense Fleet. We welcome peaceful contact. What do you wish to understand?" "You," came the simple reply. "Your species defies patterns. All life follows logic. Predictable. Ordered. But you are chaos that creates order. Destruction that brings life. War that makes peace. You are living contradictions." The main screen filled with images from human history. Great battles alongside acts of mercy. Scientific discoveries next to art. Logic and emotion intertwined in ways that seemed to fascinate the Watchers. "Sir," Baker called out, her voice tense. "They're scanning everything. Our entire internet, all our databases, our entire history. They're absorbing it all in real time." Wilson watched as the crystal ship pulsed with new colors, processing centuries of human history in minutes. "Are they hostile?" he asked Reed. "I don't think so," Reed replied thoughtfully. "They could have destroyed us already if they wanted to. I think they're genuinely curious. We're as alien to them as they are to us." The Watcher's voice returned, carrying a note of what might have been wonder. "Your species makes mistakes. You fail. You fall. Yet from each failure, you create something new. This defies all logical progression. We must understand how." Wilson looked at the magnificent crystal ship, then back at his cold coffee cup, and smiled slightly. "Well," he said, "I suppose we should show them. Baker, send a message to all Earth governments. Tell them we're about to begin humanity's strangest diplomatic mission yet, teaching advanced aliens why being imperfect might be the most perfect thing of all." The crystal ship pulsed with new colors, as if agreeing that this would be a very interesting lesson indeed. The Great Hall of the United Earth Council buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from every nation gathered to hear the Watcher's proposal. The crystal ship had taken position above the building, its massive form casting rainbow-colored shadows across the ground. Commander Wilson stood beside Dr. Reed at the main podium, both men watching as a beam of pure light materialized in the center of the hall. The light took shape, forming what the Watchers called an avatar, a way for them to interact with solid beings. "We have studied your history," the avatar spoke, its voice like chimes in the wind. "Now we must test what we do not understand about your species." Dr. Reed stepped forward. "What kind of tests did you have in mind?" The avatar waved its luminescent hand, and three-dimensional images appeared around the hall. "3 challenges, not of technology. You are young in this way. Instead, we test what makes humans human." The first image showed a complex maze that seemed to shift and change. Challenge 1. Solve the unsolvable. A puzzle that changes as you try to complete it. The second image displayed what looked like 2 identical stars. Challenge 2. Choose between identical options, where logic says there is no right answer. The third image was simply empty space. Challenge 3. Create something from nothing, when all calculations say it cannot be done. The hall erupted in whispers. These weren't normal tests of strength or intelligence. They seemed designed to make no sense at all. "We will begin now," the avatar announced. "Choose your representatives." Wilson watched as the council selected 3 people for the tasks. For the first challenge, they chose Mark, a janitor who liked doing puzzles on his breaks. For the second, they picked Anna, a teacher known for her good judgment. For the third, they selected Tom, an artist who worked in the building's cafeteria. The Watchers seemed confused by these choices. "These are not your best minds," the avatar observed. "Not your strongest warriors, not your wisest leaders." "No," Wilson agreed with a small smile. "They're just people. That's kind of our thing." The first test began. Mark stood before the ever-changing maze, watching as paths appeared and disappeared. Instead of trying to solve it logically, he closed his eyes and walked forward, letting his intuition guide him. The Watchers watched in fascination as he reached the center in minutes, simply by following what felt right. "Impossible," the avatar stated. "The maze had no solution." "Exactly," Dr. Reed explained. So Mark didn't try to solve it. He just walked. In the second test, Anna faced the 2 identical stars. The Watchers had created them to be perfectly similar in every way. She studied them for a moment, then pointed to the one on the right. "Why this one?" the avatar asked. "They are identical by every measure." Anna shrugged. This one felt warmer somehow, like it was friendlier. The Watchers' confusion was almost visible in the way their avatar flickered. The concept of choosing based on a feeling about an inanimate object's friendliness seemed to short-circuit their logical processes. The final test proved the most interesting. Tom stood before the empty space where nothing could exist according to the Watcher's calculations. He pulled out his lunch bag, took out a sandwich, and began to eat. "You are not attempting the test," the avatar observed. "Sure I am," Tom said between bites. "I'm creating something from nothing. I'm creating a moment, a memory. Right now, we're all here, watching me eat a sandwich in front of beings made of light who traveled across the galaxy. That's pretty special, don't you think?" The avatar went completely still. The crystal ship above them pulsed with rapid colors as the Watchers processed this response. "You create meaning," the avatar finally said, "where none should exist. You find paths where there are none. You make choices based on feelings about stars." It paused. You are not simply unpredictable. You are impossible. Wilson and Reed exchanged glances. Does this mean we failed the tests? Wilson asked. No, the Avatar replied. It's light brightening. It means you have shown us something we have never seen in all our travels. You have shown us that the greatest logic may be in knowing when to abandon logic entirely. The crystal ship above them pulsed with a new color, one that no human had ever seen before. It was perhaps the first time in their long history that the Watchers had experienced something they could only describe as wonder. Dr. Reed couldn't sleep. He sat in his office at the Earth Defense Station, surrounded by holographic displays showing data from the crystal ships. Something about the Watchers' tests bothered him. They were too simple, too strange. There had to be more to it. Computer, show me the historical records of other species the Watchers have contacted, he said, rubbing his tired eyes. The screens filled with information from the Galactic Council's archives. As he read through the records, his eyes grew wide. Oh no, he whispered. He reached for his communicator. Commander Wilson, you need to see this right now. Wilson arrived 15 minutes later, carrying 2 cups of hot coffee. He handed one to Reed. This better be good. It's 3 a.m. Look at this pattern, Reed said, pulling up images of different alien civilizations. Every species the Watchers have encountered followed the same path. They developed technology, reached the stars, met other races, and then what? They destroyed themselves. Reed's voice was grim. Every single one. Some through war, others through environmental disaster, a few by artificial intelligence gone wrong. But they all followed a logical progression to their own extinction. Wilson stared at the data. All of them. How many species are we talking about? Thousands, Reed replied. Over millions of years, the Watchers have been observing this pattern repeat itself across the galaxy. Advanced civilizations reach a point where their logical progression leads them to make the same mistakes over and over. Just then, the avatar of the Watchers appeared in the office, its light dimmer than usual. You have discovered the truth, it said simply. Wilson jumped, nearly spilling his coffee. How long have you been watching us? Always, the avatar replied. We watch, we observe, we learn. And we have learned that logic, followed to its ultimate conclusion, leads to extinction. Reed leaned forward. That's why you're so interested in humans. We don't follow logical patterns. Yes, the avatar's light pulsed softly. Your species does things that make no sense. You help strangers without benefit to yourself. You risk many to save one. You create art that serves no purpose except to exist. You love despite logic saying it will bring pain. And this helps us survive. Wilson asked. It does more than that, the avatar said. Look again at your tests. When faced with an unsolvable maze, you did not try to solve it. You trusted feelings. When given identical choices, you chose based on emotion. When told to create the impossible, you created meaning instead of substance. Reed suddenly understood. The tests weren't about passing or failing. They were about showing you how we think. Correct. The avatar grew brighter. Every other species tried to solve the maze through logic. They refused to choose between identical options because logic said there was no correct choice. They failed to create anything in empty space because calculations said it was impossible. And they all died out because they couldn't think beyond logic. Wilson finished. They couldn't imagine solutions that didn't fit their understanding of the universe. The avatar moved closer. Our own civilization is dying. We have followed logic for millions of years. We have become perfect in our understanding of the universe, and that perfection is killing us. Because there's no room for growth, Reed said quietly. No room for change or adaptation. No room for chaos, the avatar agreed. No room for the beautiful logic that keeps your species alive. We did not come to test you, humans. We came to learn from you. Wilson sat back, taking a sip of his coffee. So the most advanced species in the galaxy needs lessons in being illogical from a bunch of humans who still can't agree on whether pineapple belongs on pizza. The avatar's light flickered in what might have been amusement. Yes. Your ability to debate meaningless things, to create problems where none exist, to find joy in imperfection. These are the traits that may save not only your species but ours as well. Reed looked at his screens, at the thousands of extinct civilizations that had followed logic to their end. Then he looked at the Avatar, at this ancient being of pure energy asking humans to teach them how to be a little less perfect. "Well," he said with a smile, "I guess we should start with something simple. Have you ever tried dancing?" The alarms in Earth Defense Station Alpha blared at midnight. Commander Wilson ran to the control room, where chaos had erupted. The massive screen showed a human ship approaching one of the crystal vessels without authorization. "Report," Wilson barked, taking his position at the command center. Lieutenant Baker's fingers flew across her console. "Sir, it's the research vessel Horizon. They've broken formation and are headed straight for the nearest Watcher ship. Their weapons are hot." "Who's in command of that ship?" Wilson demanded. "General Thompson, sir. He's taken control of the vessel and locked out all external communications." Wilson's heart sank. General Thompson had been vocal about his distrust of the Watchers, arguing that humanity needed their technology to defend itself against future threats. Now it seemed he had decided to take matters into his own hands. The avatar of the Watchers appeared in the control room. "Your vessel approaches with hostile intent," it stated calmly. "I know," Wilson said quickly. "But please, don't retaliate. Let us handle this." The avatar tilted its head. "You wish to resolve this conflict yourself. Our weapons could disable the vessel without harming the occupants." "Yes, but that's not how we should solve this," Wilson insisted. He turned to Baker. "Get me Dr. Reed. Now." Reed arrived moments later, out of breath. "I just heard. Thompson thinks he's protecting Earth, doesn't he?" "Classic human paranoia," Wilson agreed. "But maybe we can use that. Can you reach him?" Reed nodded and moved to a communication station. After some quick work bypassing the Horizon's lockout, his voice carried across to the rogue ship. "General Thompson," Reed called out. "Before you do anything drastic, there's something you need to know about the Watchers." Thompson's gruff voice came back, tight with tension. "Save your speeches, Reed. We need their technology. Earth has to be ready." "Ready for what?" Reed asked calmly. "The Watchers are dying out because they relied too much on technology and logic. That's why they're here. They need our help, not the other way around." There was a pause. The Horizon slowed slightly. "What do you mean, dying out?" Thompson asked. "They're the most advanced species we've ever seen. And that's exactly the problem," Reed explained. "Look at your screens, General. I'm sending you the data now. Every civilization that followed pure logic and technological advancement eventually destroyed themselves. The Watchers are trying to prevent that fate." The Avatar watched this exchange with obvious fascination. "You are using truth to combat fear," it observed. "This is inefficient. Weapons would be faster." "Fast isn't always better," Wilson said quietly. "Sometimes you need to take the long way around." On the main screen, the Horizon had come to a complete stop. Thompson's voice came back, softer now. "So they're not here to study our weaknesses?" "No," Reed replied. "They're here to study what they see as our strengths, our emotions, our creativity, our ability to act illogically when logic fails." "General, you're proving their point right now. Only humans would try to steal advanced technology to protect themselves from the very beings offering to share it freely." There was a long silence. Then, slowly, the Horizon's weapons powered down. "I feel rather foolish," Thompson said finally. The Avatar's light pulsed gently. "Do not feel shame. Your actions, while hostile, demonstrate exactly why your species survives. You imagined a threat and acted to counter it, even against impossible odds. This ability to prepare for non-existent dangers has kept your species alive." Wilson smiled. Did you just turn an attempted attack into a compliment? We observe. We learn, the Avatar replied. And we have learned that sometimes conflict leads to better understanding. As the horizon returned to its proper position, Reed turned to Wilson. You know, a logical species would punish Thompson for this. Wilson nodded. Good thing we're not logical then. I think Thompson just volunteered to be our new liaison for cultural exchange with the Watchers. After all, who better to explain human irrationality than someone who just demonstrated it so perfectly? The Avatar's light shifted to that new color they had never seen before, the one that meant wonder. Once again, humanity had taken a crisis and turned it into an opportunity, defying every logical outcome. And somewhere in the galaxy, other Watchers were learning that the most dangerous species they had ever encountered might also be their last hope for survival. 1 month after the Horizon incident, Dr. Reed found himself in an unusual classroom. The crystal ship had created a space where humans and Watchers could interact directly. The room sparkled with shifting lights, and dozens of Watcher avatars floated among the human teachers. Today's lesson was about music. But what is the purpose? Asked one avatar, watching as Tom, the cafeteria artist from the tests, played a simple tune on his guitar. The vibrations follow patterns, but they serve no function. That's exactly what makes it beautiful, Tom replied, strumming another chord. Not everything needs a purpose. Sometimes things just are. Reed watched from the corner, taking notes. After the crisis with General Thompson, the Watchers had become even more fascinated by humans. They wanted to understand everything: art, music, jokes, even cooking, especially the things that seemed to have no logical reason to exist. Commander Wilson entered the room, followed by a new group of avatars. How's the music lesson going? They're struggling with the concept of doing something just because it feels good, Reed answered. Though I think some of them are starting to get it. As if to prove his point, one of the avatars had begun to pulse in time with Tom's guitar, its light shifting colors with each note. The other avatars watched this with what seemed like alarm. Unit 2749 is experiencing irregularities, one stated. This is concerning. No, Wilson said, smiling. That's dancing. Well, sort of. They're feeling the music. The avatars gathered around their dancing companion. Explain feeling the music, they demanded. I cannot explain. Unit 2749 replied, still pulsing with the rhythm. It is illogical. It serves no purpose. But I do not wish to stop. Reed quickly added this to his notes. It was the first time a Watcher had expressed a desire to do something purely because it felt good. A breakthrough. Later that day, in a meeting with the Watchers' High Council, which looked like a constellation of bright stars, Reed presented his findings. Your kind is learning to embrace chaos, he explained. Not all chaos is bad. Sometimes, like in music, controlled chaos creates something beautiful. We are beginning to understand. The High Council responded as one. Our civilization has existed for millions of years. We have mastered the physics of space and time. Yet we never created music. We never saw the need. That's what makes humans different, Wilson added. We do things without needing a reason. We create art, tell stories, fall in love, all without any logical purpose. And this is why you survive, the council said. When logic fails, you have other paths. When rules don't work, you make new ones. When faced with the impossible, you imagine possibilities. Reed nodded. We're teaching you to be more human, but we're learning too. Your logical perspective helps us see things we've missed. It's a balance. The council's lights pulsed in that now familiar color of wonder. We have existed across eons, yet you teach us to see the universe anew. Already, some of our kind begin to change. They create without purpose. They observe without analyzing. They feel. Is that not dangerous? Wilson asked. Changing the very nature of your species. All growth is dangerous, the council replied. All change brings risk. This, too, we learn from humans, the willingness to risk everything to become something new. As if to demonstrate, the council members began to pulse in rhythm, mimicking their earlier observation of music. The crystal ship around them hummed with a deep, resonant tone. "We are creating," they announced, their light brightening. Not for study, not for purpose, simply because. Reed and Wilson watched in amazement as the entire ship began to sing, its crystal structure producing harmonies that no human instrument could create. It was beautiful, alien, and completely illogical. "Well," Reed said quietly, "I think they're getting the hang of being a little less perfect." The Watchers had taken their first step away from pure logic, and the universe was already a more interesting place because of it. 6 months after first contact, Earth's night sky had changed. The crystal ships no longer just watched, they danced. They moved in complex patterns among the stars, creating light shows that made the northern lights look simple in comparison. In the main hall of the United Earth Council, Dr. Reed and Commander Wilson stood before representatives of both humanity and the Watchers. The hall itself was a perfect blend of human and Watcher design. Crystal walls that responded to emotions, chairs that adjusted to provide exactly the right amount of comfort, and artwork created by both species working together. The experiment has succeeded beyond all calculations, the High Council's avatar announced. Our civilization changes. We learn to dream. General Thompson, now the head of Human-Watcher Relations, stepped forward. And we've learned too. Your logical approach to problems has helped us avoid 3 potential environmental disasters in the past month alone. The avatar nodded. Logic and chaos, working together. This has never happened before in the history of our galaxy. Dr. Reed activated a holographic display showing data from the past 6 months. The results are remarkable. Watcher society is showing signs of creativity and emotional growth, while human society has begun to make more balanced, logical decisions. We're both becoming better versions of ourselves. Commander Wilson smiled as he watched a young Watcher avatar trying to teach an older one how to dance. The younger ones had adapted faster, embracing human chaos with an almost childlike joy. "We have a proposal," the High Council announced. "Not an alliance of conquest or submission, but something new. A partnership of growth." The holographic display changed, showing a new type of ship, one designed by both humans and Watchers together. It had the organic crystal technology of the Watchers, but was shaped by human creativity. Inside were spaces for both species to live and work together. "Exploration vessels," Wilson explained to the assembly. "Crewed by both humans and Watchers. We'll search the galaxy not just for new life, but for new ways of thinking, new ways of being. Our technology and humanity's imagination," the avatar added. "Together, we may find solutions that neither of us could discover alone." Tom, who had started all this with his simple guitar lesson, raised his hand. "Will there be music on these ships?" The avatar's light brightened in what everyone now recognized as happiness. "Of course. And art. And cooking. And many things that serve no logical purpose except to make existence more interesting." Dr. Reed looked at his notes from that first day, when the Watchers had appeared in Earth's sky. "You called us the most formidable species you'd ever encountered," he said to the avatar. "But you didn't mean our weapons or technology, did you?" "No," the avatar replied. "Your true strength is your ability to change, grow, to embrace the chaos of possibility without losing yourselves. And now you have taught us to do the same." The crystal walls of the hall began to hum with that strange, beautiful music they had learned to create. Outside, the ships in orbit joined in, filling the sky with harmony. Humans in the hall found themselves singing along, creating a symphony of logical patterns and chaotic creativity. "The galaxy is vast," the High Council said. "For millions of years, we searched for perfection, for absolute logic. We never realized that perfection was the enemy of growth. Humanity taught us that the most perfect thing of all is the ability to be wonderfully imperfect." As the music reached its peak, the first of the new ships rose from Earth's surface. Its crystal hull shimmered with colors no one had seen before 6 months ago, colors that meant wonder, joy, and possibility. Inside, humans and Watchers prepared to explore the galaxy together, each making the other stronger. Commander Wilson watched it rise through the atmosphere. "So," he said to no one in particular, "this is how our story begins, not with war or conquest, but with a dance among the stars." And above them, logic and chaos swirled together in perfect harmony, creating something entirely new in the vast darkness of space. The most formidable partnership the galaxy had ever seen was ready to begin its journey.